Dog adopts man who was afraid of dogs, but what happened next will change everything you know about fear and love. Marcus had been terrified of dogs his entire life. It started when he was 6. A neighbor's German shepherd had knocked him down, and the sound of barking became his nightmare. For 32 years, he crossed streets to avoid dogs, declined invitations to friends' homes if they had pets, and felt his heart race whenever he heard a bark in the distance. But one Tuesday evening, everything changed. Marcus was walking home from work when he noticed something unusual in the alley behind the grocery store. A gray and white pit bull was sitting perfectly still, staring at him with the most gentle eyes he'd ever seen. The dog didn't bark, didn't move, just watched. And if you're still watching this but haven't subscribed yet, this story is about to get incredibly emotional. This channel shares real stories that remind us why dogs are called man's best friend, and I promise you, Marcus and this dog's journey will touch your heart in ways you never expected. The subscribe button is right there, and honestly, if you love stories where fear turns into the purest form of love, you belong here with us. Don't miss what happens next. Marcus froze. Every instinct told him to run, but something about this dog was different. There was no aggression in those eyes, only loneliness that somehow matched his own.
"Hey, buddy," Marcus whispered, surprising himself. His voice was shaking. The dog's tail moved, just slightly, a cautious wag. Marcus took one step closer, then another. His hands were trembling, but he kept moving. When he was close enough, he slowly extended his hand. The dog leaned forward and pressed his nose gently against Marcus's palm. That touch, that single moment of connection, broke something inside Marcus that had been broken for 30 decades. The dog was wearing a collar, but no tags. Marcus called animal control, and they told him the shelter was full. They could come get the dog in 3 days, but there was a good chance he'd be euthanized within a week. Pit bulls rarely got adopted from that shelter. Marcus heard himself say, "I'll keep him." He couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. The man who had feared dogs for 32 years was taking one home. That first night was chaos. Marcus didn't know anything about dogs. He bought food, bowls, a leash, and a bed at the nearest pet store, his anxiety spiking with every purchase. The dog, Marcus named him Atlas, followed him from room to room, as if afraid his new person would disappear. At 2 a.m., Marcus woke to find Atlas sitting beside his bed, just watching him sleep. And instead of fear, Marcus felt something he hadn't expected: protected. The transformation happened slowly, then all at once.
Atlas never barked at Marcus, not once. It was as if the dog understood this human needed gentleness. When Marcus would tense up at sudden movements, Atlas would sit down and wait. When Marcus had panic attacks, yes, the irony, about having a dog in his house, Atlas would rest his heavy head on Marcus's lap until the breathing steadied. 3 weeks in, something remarkable happened. Marcus was having a particularly bad day at work. His boss had criticized him in front of everyone, his car needed expensive repairs, and he felt that old, familiar depression creeping back. The same depression that had shadowed him since childhood. The same depression that had made him isolate himself from people, from joy, from connection. He came home, sat on the couch, and broke down crying. Atlas didn't hesitate. The big pit bull climbed onto the couch, laid across Marcus's lap all 70 pounds of him, and started licking the tears from his face. And in that moment, Marcus realized something profound. Atlas hadn't just chosen him, Atlas had saved him. You see, Marcus had been afraid of dogs because he'd been afraid of trust. That childhood incident had taught him that opening yourself to something means risking getting hurt. So he'd closed himself off, not just from dogs, but from everyone. No deep friendships, no romantic relationships, no vulnerability.
But Atlas demanded vulnerability. Atlas demanded trust. And in learning to love this gentle giant who society told him was dangerous, Marcus learned to love himself. The next months were magical. Marcus started taking Atlas to the park. At first, he was terrified when other dogs approached, but Atlas was so calm, so friendly, that Marcus's fear simply evaporated in the presence of his dog's confidence. People would stop them, wanting to pet Atlas, and Marcus, the man who had avoided social interaction for decades, found himself having conversations, making friends, laughing. Atlas loved everyone, but he worshipped Marcus. When Marcus worked from home, Atlas laid at his feet. When Marcus cooked dinner, Atlas supervised from his spot in the kitchen corner. When Marcus watched TV, Atlas claimed exactly half the couch, his head resting on Marcus's leg. But the most incredible thing was what happened at night. Marcus had suffered from nightmares his entire life, dreams of being chased, trapped, hurt. But after Atlas came into his life, the nightmares stopped. Marcus would wake up in the middle of the night to find Atlas pressed against him, and he'd fall back asleep feeling safer than he'd ever felt, even as a child.
"6 months after finding Atlas in that alley, Marcus met Sarah at the dog park. She had a golden retriever named Sunny, and when Atlas and Sunny started playing together, she smiled at Marcus with genuine warmth. She later told him it was his gentleness with Atlas that made her trust him. They married a year later, and today Marcus looks at Atlas, now graying around the muzzle, moving slower but still watching him with those same gentle eyes, and remembers the terrified man who almost walked away from the greatest gift of his life. Atlas taught Marcus that the things we're most afraid of are often the things we need most. That vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the gateway to connection. That love requires courage, but courage is just fear that's found a purpose. Sometimes the rescue doesn't go the way we expect. Sometimes the dog rescues the human. What would you do if you found a dog that changed your fear into love? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment.